Midway through an enchilada eating contest is a horrible time to ponder where my life is headed. I'm cramming lukewarm tortillas and cheese into my mouth, gulping down unchewed pieces with water like pills, all in hopes of winning a desperately needed $200 gift certificate. Reflecting on the life choices I've made in the 34 years leading up to this is not going to give me the boost in self-confidence I need for the second half of the competition. And yet, just as I have in every competitive eating contest before, I pause a moment to take stock of just what I'm doing. Here I am in an empty storefront in a Cedar Hills strip mall, probably a decade older than anyone else taking part in this silly sport. I'm likely taking it more serious than anyone else here, too, arriving early, listening to Ghostface Killad's The Champ on repeat in my car. Eyes closed, visualizing pushing an enchilada into my mouth with one hand, picking up a second with the other, chewing, swallowing, effortless and fluid. The other eaters are high school and college-age kids just having a laugh. The $200 gift certificate prize is good for anywhere in the shopping center housing the contest and Matito's, the restaurant putting it on. This includes a couple of department stores. I'm already thinking about how far I can stretch a couple $100 at the Old Navy store a few stores over. My kids will need back-to-school clothes soon. Looking at the other contestants' food piles to see how I'm doing in comparison is my next bad idea. I have maybe 7 or 8 of the things down, but I'm barely halfway through one of the 3 rows of greasy enchiladas cooling in groups of a dozen. 3 or 4 people are already working on their second row. When I see how far I lag, my shoulders slump. Looking out at the crowd is yet another bad decision. Support is pretty evenly divided for the 10 or so contestants, which of course means that most of the audience is rooting for someone other than me. I do have some friends here, and when I make eye contact, they beam and clap, and I'm sure they mean me the best. But as I suppress my gag reflex, trying not to think about my aching jaw muscles, the pounds of leaden cheese already bulging in my stomach, and the pounds more awaiting me on the table, it feels like mockery. That's when that unwelcome moment of contemplation forces its way into my consciousness. A vague uneasiness about wasting so much food in this garish spectacle coalesces into a knee-buckling shock of sadness as I dwell on what my fellow eaters and I are doing, forcing countless empty calories into our bodies as quickly as possible. Food that could have saved the life of some undernourished, enchilada-loving child in the developing world, maybe. And for what? So that strangers can laugh at grown men and women make a disgusting, wasteful mess of and maybe even puke up some perfectly mediocre Tex-Mex? Why am I doing this? Is it some deep-seated craving for approval or attention? Am I trying to assert my manhood or validate my worth? So far, my life doesn't feel like it's amounted to much, at least not measured against childhood dreams of becoming a rich and famous novelist. Age 30 came and went without my having finished writing a single book, let alone getting it published. Instead, I'm scraping by, paycheck to paycheck, a missed mortgage payment or 2 away from foreclosure in the wake of divorce cutting the household income in half. I have 2 great kids, true, and they've cheered me on at past eating contests. But they're with their mother this Saturday. This is my first contest they haven't seen. Thinking like this is not conducive to winning. My first eating contest was a few years before, the 4th of July brass-knuckle corn dog beatdown at the Libertine Bar. This victory remains perhaps the most glorious moment of my life. In 15 minutes, I put away 16 battered Frankfurters as red, white, and blue confetti rained and the DJ cranked inspirational jams like Living in America and America, Fuck Yeah. My wife, kids, and about a dozen other family members and friends cheered me on against 19 other eaters. It was mostly drunken musicians and artist types, including one hammered, barely upright young woman who insisted she was pregnant, referring to one of the bar's patriotic balloons tucked under her blouse as her baby. My youngest brother and a barrel-chested friend of his went down the line shouting threats and obscene discouragement to anyone who stood a chance of winning. His friend was a little too convincing. In fact, a few weeks later, he would be hospitalized in a mental institution after barricading himself in his home in a standoff with police and, in a separate incident, nearly beating an SMU student to death. I was eating as much out of fear of that guy's desire to win. In that contest, too, I'd had my moment of doubt and despair, but pushed through to finish strong and claim the grand prize, a $100 bar tab. I used some of it right away for celebratory drinks and my kids' sodas. That night, watching fireworks over Fair Park, I learned that 2.5 pounds of half-digested corn dog batter soaked with beer will expand until the stomach is forced to jettison it. Whoever is responsible for whatever groundskeeping is undertaken in the alley behind the double-wide bar, I am truly sorry. After that contest and subsequent ones, I was astonished by how many people asked about my post-competition bowel movements. Also, by my eagerness to answer. There was no post-competition bowel movement, even when I did hold down the food. My body absorbed every ounce of whatever garbage I'd mass consumed. Or maybe my GI tract was in shock. With 4 minutes remaining in the enchilada contest, I wiped chili con carne off my hands and abandoned my initial technique of double fisting the food. Using forks and knives isn't slowing anyone else, so I figure I'll finish in a dignified manner. Scoop after scoop, I shovel the food in, chewing once, twice, 3 times, and then gulping hard. When I push too much toward the back of my throat, my eyes water and my stomach threatens to prematurely expel its contents, or reverse in the parlance of the sport. I steady my breathing and wash the chunks down with water. Then I fork another piece and do it again. I steal glances left and right, somewhat encouraged as my rivals falter one by one. I think about my kids again. They aren't here, but they know what I'm doing. They'd laughed and bragged to their friends that their dad's a semi-professional eater. When they wished me luck over the phone, I didn't tell them winning the gift card might mean the difference between new uniforms and hand-me-downs. I imagine holding the prize in my hands. Then I imagine it in someone else's hands. I could take it, or I could drive home to an otherwise empty 3-bedroom house with nothing but a stomachache. As the crowd chants the final countdown, 5, 4, 3, I pick up a whole enchilada and stuff it. As long as I eventually swallow it, any food still left in my mouth at the bell counts toward my tally. The last second cram is the closest thing I have to a strategy. Otherwise, it's just grim determination. The 3rd place and 2nd place winners' names are called, and I don't hear my name. Damn, I didn't think I was going to win, but I was sure I'd at least place. I look down at my tray and try to console myself with the idea that at least I got a day's worth of food for my trouble. Then I hear far away, as if from another room, 1st place, Jesse Hughey. Along with the $200 shopping certificate, the prize basket also includes a $60 gift card to the very restaurant that put on the contest. Before my friends and I walked there to celebrate, I text my daughter and tell her I'd won. "Awesome, I knew you would," she replies. While my friends find a table, I head to the bar. I don't want any more food, but I have managed to save room for scotch. Not beer. I already learned that lesson.